You feel it, don't you? That weight in your chest, the one that never fully goes away. The sense that you're carrying something invisible yet unbearably heavy. You look around and see people moving through life so easily, so effortlessly, and you wonder, why does it feel so different for you? Why does everything require such a deep battle? Why do you feel like you're walking through fire while everyone else is strolling through a garden? I'll tell you why. Because you are not like them. You were never meant to be. You were born into a path that most people will never understand, a path that demands everything from you before it gives anything back. And this path, it comes with burdens. Burdens that most will never have to carry. Burdens that break people, but also forge them into something indestructible. The first burden, the loneliness. Not the kind where you're simply alone, but the kind where you can be in a room full of people and still feel like no one sees you. No one really understands you. You speak, but your words feel like they're falling into an abyss. You try to connect, but there's always a gap, always something missing. And it's because you operate on a different frequency. Most people are content living on the surface, but you were born to dive into the depths. And the deeper you go, the fewer people there are. That's why the loneliness isn't just an experience, it's a requirement. It forces you to face yourself, to strip away everything that isn't real, to find strength in your own presence. Because one day when you've walked far enough, you will meet others who have traveled the same road. But until then, you must endure the silence. Then there's the burden of loss. Not just losing people, but losing versions of yourself. You have to watch as old identities, old dreams, old delusions crumble before your eyes. And it's brutal. Because every time you think you've arrived, every time you think you've figured it out, the universe takes something else away. It forces you to evolve again and again until there is nothing left but the core of who you truly are. And most people can't handle this. They cling. They resist. They fight to hold on to what is trying to leave. But you don't have that luxury. If you want to fulfill what you came here to do, you have to let go. Over and over.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Until you master the art of surrender. And then there's the weight of knowing. The burden of seeing things others don't, feeling things others ignore, understanding the deeper patterns behind life's chaos while everyone else is distracted by the surface. It isolates you, because when you try to explain what you see, people look at you like you're speaking another language. They call you intense, too much, unrealistic. But what they don't realize is that you are not here to fit in. You are here to see, to guide, to transform. And that knowing, it's both a gift and a curse. Because once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. But perhaps the hardest burden of all is the waiting. The agonizing patience required to step into your full power. You know you're meant for something more. You can feel it in your bones, in your dreams, in the way life keeps pushing you into the unknown. But the timing is not up to you. The universe moves on its own schedule, and sometimes it makes you wait. It strips you down, tests your faith, forces you to sit in the emptiness until you either break or become unshakable. And this is where most quit. They give up right before the breakthrough, right before the moment everything was about to align. But you cannot afford to quit, because the path you walk is not just for you. It's for every soul you will one day awaken, for every life you will one day change. So yes, the burdens are heavy. Yes, they will push you to your limits. but they are also what make you who you are. And if you can endure them, if you can carry them without breaking, you will emerge as something unstoppable. Because in the end, the universe does not burden those who are not strong enough to bear it. And you were chosen for this. There comes a moment where everything inside you screams to stop, where the weight becomes unbearable, the silence too loud, the waiting too long. You try to hold yourself together, but piece by piece, you start to break. And this is where most people give up. This is where they turn back, where they convince themselves that maybe they were wrong. Maybe this path wasn't meant for them. Maybe they were never chosen for anything. But this is also where everything is decided. Because the universe does not test the weak, it tests the strong. It takes those it knows are capable and pushes them to the absolute limit, not to break them, but to see if they are truly ready. And this is the part no one talks about. Everyone loves to speak about the awakening, the enlightenment, the growth, but no one talks about the part where you are stripped of everything, left with nothing, forced to face the raw, brutal truth of who you really are. No distractions, no shortcuts, just you, standing at the edge, with only two choices: fall or rise. And this is where the mind plays its tricks. It whispers doubts. It drags up every failure, every reason why you should quit. It tells you that you've been waiting too long, that nothing is coming, that maybe you were never meant for more. And it's convincing, because at this point you are exhausted. You are drained, broken, empty. You want relief. You want a way out. And the easiest thing in the world would be to let go, to sink back into the comfort of an ordinary life, to stop fighting, to stop believing. But here's the thing: the universe is not punishing you. It is preparing you. It is burning away every weakness, every illusion, every piece of you that is not strong enough to carry what is coming. Because what is coming is big. And if you are not unshakable, if you are not absolutely certain in who you are, you will not survive it. That is why it takes everything from you first. Because it needs to know when you have nothing left, when everything is gone, will you still stand? Will you still believe? Will you still move forward, even when there is no proof that anything is coming? Because that is the final test. Not whether you can succeed when things are easy, but whether you can hold your power when everything is against you. Whether you can trust yourself in the darkness. Whether you can keep walking when the path has disappeared. And this is where most fail. They wait for a sign, for reassurance, for some proof that they are on the right path. But the universe does not give reassurance to those who do not trust themselves. It waits. It watches. It sees if you will break under the pressure, or if you will decide that nothing can break you. And the ones who make it through, the ones who refuse to quit, even when quitting feels like the only option, they don't just survive. They rise. They step out of the fire as something new, something unstoppable. And that is when everything shifts. That is when the doors open, the opportunities appear, the purpose reveals itself. Not because they begged for it, not because they chased it, but because they proved they were ready for it. And that is the difference. The universe does not give power to those who seek it, it gives power to those who are ready to wield it. So the real question is, now that you are at the breaking point, will you let it destroy you? Or will you let it transform you? There's a moment when you finally stop fighting. Not because you've given up, but because you've realized there was never anything to fight in the first place. You've spent years chasing, pushing, forcing, believing that if you just worked harder, if you just did more, if you just proved yourself, life would finally give you what you've been waiting for. But all it ever gave you was exhaustion. And then something shifts. You get tired in a different way. Not in the way that makes you want to quit, but in the way that makes you release. You stop grasping. You stop begging. You stop looking at life like it owes you something. And in that moment, everything changes. Because the universe was never withholding anything from you, it was simply waiting for you to let go. To stop chasing what was always meant to come to you naturally. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think surrender means giving up. They think it means sitting back and doing nothing. But surrender is not inaction, it's alignment. It's moving with the current instead of against it. It's trusting that what is meant for you will find you, not because you forced it, but because you became the version of yourself that naturally attracts it. And when you reach this state, life stops being a struggle. The right people start appearing. The right opportunities flow effortlessly. The things that once felt impossible suddenly feel inevitable. And it's not magic, it's not luck. It's because you have finally stopped sending the signal of desperation, of lack, of fear. And the universe responds to what you are, not what you want. That's why those who need love the most push it away. That's why those who desperately seek success never seem to find it. That's why those who are always searching for signs never see them. Because their energy is rooted in not having. And life will always mirror that back to them. But when you stop needing, when you stop chasing, when you stop making your happiness conditional on some future event, that's when everything clicks. That's when you realize that what you were waiting for was never outside of you. It was always you. The moment you become whole, the moment you decide that you are already enough, the moment you stop looking for something to complete you, that's when life rushes in to give you everything you thought you had to fight for. Not because you finally earned it, but because you finally stopped resisting it. And that is the final lesson. The universe does not respond to force. It responds to flow. And the second you stop grasping, the second you stop waiting, the second you stop making your peace, your power, your purpose conditional, that's when everything you've ever wanted finally finds you. Because it was never running from you. You were just blocking it with your own doubt. So now the only question left is, are you finally ready to stop chasing and let life give you everything that was always meant to be yours? There's something different about those who have suffered. You can see it in their eyes, in the way they move, in the way they carry themselves through the world. There's a depth to them that cannot be faked, a presence that cannot be taught. They are the ones who have walked through fire and didn't burn, the ones who have been shattered and still found a way to put themselves back together. And the truth is, suffering was never a punishment, it was the initiation. Because nothing powerful is ever created without pressure. Nothing unbreakable is ever made without being tested. The strongest souls are not the ones who have had it easy, they are the ones who have been forged in the kind of darkness that would destroy most. And this is why those who carry the deepest wounds also hold the greatest power. Not because they are special, not because they were chosen by luck, but because they refuse to let their pain make them bitter. They let it make them unstoppable. And this is what most people don't understand. They think suffering weakens you, that it drains you, that it steals your light. But suffering is only destructive when you resist it, when you fight it. When you try to run from it, instead of letting it do what it was meant to do, transform you. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the fire that burns away everything that is not real, everything that is not strong enough to survive the next level of your evolution. That's why the ones who have suffered the most are the ones who rise the highest, because they have nothing left to fear. They have already faced the worst. They have already lost what they thought they couldn't live without. And yet they are still here, still breathing, still moving, still becoming. And that kind of power, it cannot be broken. But here's the part: no one tells you suffering does not automatically make you stronger. Some people go through pain and never grow. They stay stuck. They let it break them. They use it as an excuse to stop trying, to stop believing, to stop living. And that is the real tragedy, because pain itself is not what makes you unstoppable. It is what you do with it. Do you let it drown you, or do you let it push you to rise? Do you let it close your heart, or do you use it to deepen your understanding of life? Do you let it make you smaller, or do you decide that if you have to suffer, then you will make it mean something? Because that choice, how you respond to the suffering, is what separates the ones who stay lost from the ones who rise beyond anything they ever imagined. So now the only question is, will you let your pain bury you, or will you let it be the thing that sets you free? There comes a point where life strips you down to nothing. Everything you thought was certain collapses. The people you trusted walk away. The plans you made fall apart. The things you relied on disappear. And you are left standing in the wreckage, wondering why, wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you're being punished. But this is not punishment. This is the clearing. This is the part where the universe removes everything that is not meant for you, so that you have space for what is. And most people don't make it past this point. They cling to the old, to the familiar, to what is being torn from their hands. They waste their energy trying to rebuild what was never meant to last, and in doing so, they miss the gift hidden inside the destruction. Because the truth is, you cannot receive more until you release what is no longer aligned with you. And this is where the real test happens. Do you trust the process, or do you resist it? Do you let go, or do you fight to hold on? Because the ones who cling will suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because they refuse to surrender to the natural order of things. Growth requires space. Expansion requires emptiness before it can be filled. You cannot step into a new life while dragging the weight of an old one behind you. And this is why the universe takes everything first. Not to hurt you, but to prepare you. To strip you of attachments, of illusions, of everything that is keeping you small. To force you to stand in the unknown and realize that even with nothing, you are still whole. Because when you reach that point, when you stop fearing loss, when you stop resisting change, when you stop needing control, that is when everything begins to flow. And then, just when you have finally made peace with the emptiness, just when you have accepted that maybe this is how things are meant to be, something shifts. The things that left are replaced by things beyond what you imagined. The relationships that crumbled are replaced with ones that nourish your soul. The opportunities that disappeared make way for something bigger than you ever thought possible. And it happens effortlessly. Not because you forced it, but because you became the person who was ready to receive it. That is the secret. The universe never truly takes it, only clears space. And the ones who have the patience, the faith, the strength to endure the clearing are the ones who wake up one day and realize they have been given more than they ever dreamed. Not because they chased it, but because they trusted it. So the only question left is, will you let the breaking destroy you, or will you let it rebuild you into something unstoppable? There's a moment right before everything changes where it feels like everything is falling apart. Not just in small ways, but in ways that shake you to your core. The things you relied on stop working. The people you thought would always be there start to disappear. The plans you made suddenly seem impossible, and you start to wonder if you were wrong about everything. If maybe you were never meant to make it. If maybe this is the part where you finally break. But this is not the end. This is the test. The final, brutal test before the breakthrough. Because life does not hand transformation to those who are not ready. It strips them down first. It pushes them to the point where they have nothing left to hold on to but themselves. It forces them to let go of every illusion, every excuse, every false identity they were still clinging to. Because only then, when they have nothing left to lose, will they finally understand that they were never waiting on life to change. Life was waiting on them to become the version of themselves that could handle what was coming. And this is where most people give up. They mistake the breaking for the end instead of what it really is, the transition. They let fear convince them that the struggle means they are failing, when in reality, it means they are closer than ever. Because this is how it always happens. Right before the shift, right before the breakthrough, right before the life you've been waiting for finally arrives, everything gets worse. Not because you are doomed, but because you are being tested. Will you revert back to old patterns? Will you fall back into fear? Will you lower your standards, shrink yourself down, beg life to give you back the scraps you once settled for? Or will you hold your ground? Will you trust that this chaos is not punishment but preparation? Because the ones who make it through this moment, the ones who refuse to quit, who stand tall even as everything crumbles around them, are the ones who wake up one day and realize the storm wasn't destroying them. It was clearing the path. And then, just like that, the shift happens. The pressure lifts. The opportunities appear. The things that once felt impossible start unfolding effortlessly. And it's not random. It's not luck. It's because you passed the test. You proved that you could hold your power even in the darkest moments. You showed life that you were ready. And when you reach this point, you will look back and wonder why you ever doubted. Why you ever thought the struggle meant you were failing when it was actually the proof that you were becoming. So now, standing here in the middle of the chaos, you have a choice. Will you let the breaking convince you to quit? Or will you finally understand that this is not where your story ends, this is where it begins?